Welcome everyone. I'm Stevie Lang and I'm so glad that you're here, whether in person or online. We are going to have a great time today. And is anyone, no. As I'm looking around, I was going to ask if anyone has joined for the first time, and the answer is absolutely not. But you might be joining us for the first time online, and if that is the case, know that Unity is a positive, practical, progressive approach to Christianity based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We honor the universal truths in all religions and respect each individual's right to choose a spiritual path. You can visit unitydesmoines.com to learn more about the Unity movement. Announcements. I tell you what, this is a happening place, especially in the next week. Tuesday noon is our midday meditation with Deb, provided that the weather cooperates. At 6:30 p.m., Crystal Kellogg, Paul is going to talk more about that. So here we just send the announcements. He's going to come talk about his lovely daughter coming to town.
Yay. I announced this quite a bit. There's flyers in the back in case you want to get some and pass them out to people. Her solos will include From the King and I, Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, West Side Story with Moi, Sound of Music, Pocahontas, South Pacific, and we got a whole ton of other fun things for kids and everybody, so bring your inner child and we'll enjoy it. I will also, Susan wanted me to announce this. I have it, it's hanging up back there. This is a special concert at Drake on March 30th. And there's a very world-famous choir called Cantus that's going to be performing along with Drake University's Borealis and Sparrow Chamber Choir. I hope I said that right. Sparrow Chamber. They are exquisite. Susan's heard them. They're just beautiful. So if you want to enjoy some music, come on out for that.
It looks like, does it say Yggdrasil on it? That's like the Norse tree of life. I might just go to that.
Yeah. It's supposed to be beautiful music.
There you go. All right. So, Wednesday, we have two things going on. There's going to be Tai Chi in the sanctuary, and then Authentic Relating with Rachel Bennett and I is going to be upstairs in the community room. And on that, if you need the link, somebody said that the RSVP link wasn't working for them. So if you're like, I went in on that, please see me after the service, because I think we only have 2 to 3 spots left. We're limiting the size. So super excited about that starting. Thursday, 2 to 4 p.m. in the community room is Hooks and Needles with Sharon. And then next Sunday, oh my gosh, so much going on. After the service, there is going to be a new member class. And there's Kirtan, devotional chanting at noon. There's also the Big Pyramid Spring Equinox event with, it doesn't say this, but I think that's Laura Jones and Deb Jennings. Yeah. Correct? Yeah. And then the new moon gong meditation with Deb. So all of that is happening next Sunday. So as high as the energy usually is around here, it's going to be like, whoa. And I think that covers it, other than Sharon still needs help moving a few more things, and she promised me that it wasn't going to be that much more. So anybody who's willing to help, if we just gather over by the hallway or find her, ask her what she needs moved, there's just a few more items. Does anyone else have any announcements that I did not include? Okay, fabulous. Let's dig into the statement of faith. Oh, no, did we forget a song? Did I skip the song? Let's just do this. Okay, we'll just do this. As you can see, a little different music team today. Together, there's only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe. God, the good, omnipotent. And next, the unity affirmation. And as we all say this together, really let yourself drop into that feeling of oneness. Unity of Des Moines is a radiating center of the Christ light, mighty to attract its good and to radiate good to others. Yes, so glad you're all here today. The reading, Sunday, March 12th, is titled, I Welcome the Light, and it's based on Genesis 1:3, which is, then God said, let there be light, and there was light. Taking a moment to appreciate the beauty of a sunset, I realized that in another part of the world, the first rays of a rising sun are bringing light to a morning sky. Whether I can see it or not, the sun never stops shining. Somewhere, a new day is dawning. Much more brilliantly than the sun, the light of God, too, is always shining. Sometimes my thoughts may be so focused on a challenging life situation that I do not sense the divine light. Then, in a flash of insight, I experience again the illuminating presence that even in my darkest moments is as near as my next thought. I affirm, let there be light. I breathe out frustration and worry. Breathing in, I am filled with the light of truth that illuminates my mind and shines from within my heart. And as we fill ourselves with that light, I invite you all to just center, and we'll have a brief meditation thinking about the people that are on the prayer list. Sending them love, well wishes, breathing in the light of truth, and breathing out frustration and worry. Roland, Cynthia, Vicky, Seal, Christy, Jenny, Greg, Kevin, and anyone struggling with troubles we know nothing about. Let's just hold them in our heart and imagine them all being filled with the love and light of God. Breathing in love, breathing out any tension. When you feel complete, open your eyes, and we'll have the congregational song led by Dennis and Sarah. We also want to send our love to Deb and Justin, who were not able to make it here today with the weather.
Yeah, good morning. And I think we did this for the first song once, so should I just do them both together? That would work.
Sure. You're right.
We had a band rehearsal on Tuesday, and it was our first real one since I've been here. And it was wonderful and playful and kind of exciting. And it was really disappointing that Deb and Justin couldn't come this morning. But I'm going to channel Justin and do my very best. And we're going to do a Holly Near song called Breathe In, or and you'll get the hang of it. It's pretty straightforward. I feel so sad, I feel so bad, I feel so mad, breathe in, breathe out, my mind is here, my mind is there, my life is up there, breathe in, breathe out, I feel so blue, much to do, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Justin, of course, found the bossa nova in that. It doesn't belong there, but I love it. This next one is Be Here Now, and it's from a group called Women with Wings who lives in Maine and is a singing community. It's just very, very simple. I'm just going to sing it. Let's do it 3 times through. Why don't I sing it once through and then join me for 3 times through. Now is the only moment. Now is the only moment. Be in this moment. Breathe in this moment. Love in this moment. Be here now. Be here now in this moment. Now is the only moment. Now is the only moment. Be in this moment. Breathe in this moment. Love in this moment. Be here now. Be here now in this moment. Now is the only moment. Now is the only moment. Be in this moment. Breathe in this moment. Love in this moment. Be here now. Be here now in this moment. One last time. Now is the only moment. Now is the only moment. Be in this moment. Breathe in this moment. Love in this moment. Be here now. Be here now in this moment. Namaste.
Namaste. You know, that's something, I think we were doing it, Sarah, I didn't get a chance to go, but to sing songs like this together and just join our voices together, I love that song. So thank you for having it today.
Thank you.
Our guest speaker today is our own friend and pillar of this place, Michael Kolbeck. Proud father of 3 adult daughters, ordained minister and practicing Reiki master. And he's going to be speaking on Your Breath is the Gateway. So please welcome Michael.
Thank you very much. All right, Your Breath is the Gateway. I love those songs that were shared this morning, that we sang this morning, especially the first one. I still kind of have it vibing through me right now, so I've got to kind of switch gears a little bit. But the lyrics, I was paying attention to the lyrics of that first song especially, and I thought, wow, okay, this is going to fit perfectly with what I'm going to go through today. So, really love that and really appreciate that. All right. I'd like you to take a moment, just where you're at. If you're online, if you're sitting, relaxing, if you're standing, just take a moment and begin to focus your attention. Begin to focus your attention on your breath. And as you do, begin to just slow the breath down. And take a deep inhalation, as deep as you can, whatever's comfortable for you. And then take a nice exhalation. And as you continue to keep your awareness on your breath, begin to see if you notice anything changing. As you continue to do that inhale and that nice, slow exhale, maybe you notice that the air, as you breathe in, it feels a little bit cooler. And as you exhale, it feels a little warmer. Maybe as you take that nice, deep inhalation, followed by that nice, long, slow exhalation. Maybe something in your body begins to light up. Maybe there's a sensation that you weren't aware of a moment ago. And maybe there's not. Just continue to keep your focus, your awareness on that breath. And notice that rhythm that is there. That balance. This inhale, this exhale, this unending flow. Both of them, the inhale and the exhale, are essential for life. They make up this one breath that we have. I want you to all do something with me here for a moment. Take a nice deep inhalation. Now take another inhalation. I want you to take another inhalation if you can. You get to a point where your body is automatically going to say, I can't inhale anymore. I need to exhale. The same happens if we exhale. If we exhale everything out and try to exhale a little bit more out, and then a little bit more, we can go longer than we think. But eventually, our body's going to say, I need the other half of this. I need the other part. The inhalation and the exhalation, they're opposites, right? They're polarities. And yet they both exist as part of the one breath. As we talk about this today, most of you, I'm sure, are aware of the yin-yang symbol, yin-yang symbol. And we kind of want to think about that in terms of the breath. That's part of the one breath. It's the whole, but we have the polarities of the inhalation and the exhalation. And they work in balance, automatically in balance, but the real question is there harmony within this breathing? Consider a normal pregnancy, if you will. So what happens when a baby's born into the world? They take that first inhalation, that first breath of life. And from there, they began their own inhalation and exhalation. It's automatic, or as I was speaking with Dennis this morning, this is the unconscious aspect of the breath and the body doing what it does. Their own rhythm begins, and the breath of life is with them. It's interesting. If you go back and you look at many creation stories, a lot of them have this aspect of breathing life into. Genesis 2:7 says, And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. In Greek mythology, Prometheus creates man out of the earth, and the goddess Athena breathes life into his creation. The breathing into, it comes from the Latin inspirate, which means literally to breathe into or inspire. In other words, inspiration. Inspiration is the act of drawing air into the lungs. But it's also defined as a divine influence or action upon a person. Now, expiration. Expiration is just the opposite of inspiration. Expiration is the act of forcing air out of the lungs. It's a breathing out, an end, a death. That which is expired. How many times have you heard somebody leading a breathing class and they'll say, all right, in this next breath, I want you to breathe in. I want you to breathe in new life, new dreams, new hopes. They're always referring to breathing in something that inspires you, enlivens you. And then they'll mention, on the exhale, I want you to let go. I want you to surrender. I want you to release anything. Maybe it's old energy, old beliefs. Maybe it's a grudge you're carrying. Release anything. Let go of anything that no longer supports you, that no longer serves your being. When you're breathing out things which no longer inspire us, which are no longer life-giving. It's like the milk in our fridge, right? It only lasts for a certain amount of time. At some point, it's going to expire. You need to get rid of it. Conscious breathing is the same thing. The inspiration and the expiration. At some point, we need to release all of these old things in our life. These things that were once very inspiring to us. But now we need to let them go. So we started with inhalation and exhalation. And we've ended up with two synonymous words of the inspiration and the expiration, which I feel gives a better insight into the sacredness and the power of the breath. And not only of the breath itself, because the breath is essential for life, but the sacredness and the power of the conscious breath. And it is this conscious breath that is our gateway to a better life. For when you breathe deeply, when you breathe consciously, your breath then equals connection. Back in November 2016, I needed new life breathed into me, metaphorically speaking. Physically, I was fine. I was out doing everything just like everybody else does. I was running to my job, taking care of my family, running to the grocery store. I was inhaling and exhaling, but there was absolutely no inspiration going on and no expiration going on. Simply put, I was in survival mode. That's just the way I was living. And I needed something to change. I needed some inspiration in my life. I needed something that was going to enliven me again. Back at that time, November 2016, my life was absolutely in complete disarray. It was falling apart all around me. I was working like crazy trying to put all the pieces back together, trying to hold it together, everything that I held sacred. But no matter what I did, it didn't seem to be making any difference at all. And I started reaching out, I started searching for others that could help me along this journey, along this path. And one individual I resonated pretty strongly with. We had a couple of phone calls, and even though I resonated real strongly with this individual, I still tried to back out of our conversations, back out of things that I knew might be exactly what I needed. And he said to me, I can't help you if you don't show up. I can't help you if you don't come to this retreat that he was having. It was out in Connecticut. I was here in Iowa. He just laid the cards on the table for me. Said, I can help you, but I need you to get here. So I found myself by the end of the week getting a plane ticket, hopping on a plane, and ending up in Connecticut. As I arrived there, They took myself and 7 other men. We were going to go on this weekend men's retreat, Friday through Sunday. I had no idea what this entailed. I'd never done anything like this in my life. And they took us down one by one. They started off Friday afternoon in the park. They took us down one by one to meet David, the leader. This was the individual I had talked to on the phone. And as they came and got me and brought me down to David, we gave each other a big hug. And David said, Michael, I am so glad that you got on that plane and that you made it here. He said, now tell me, now that you're here, what do you want to get out of this weekend? It was pretty easy. I wanted to save my family. I wanted to save my marriage. Everything I'd worked so hard for. And although I expressed that, the truer words that came forth, I said, I want to feel alive again. And feel like the walking dead. And I broke down and I began to cry. And it was interesting because here I am. Strange place. I'd never been to Connecticut before. Strange man. I never met David before. And yet there was something about him and something about this place, something about that moment where I felt safe to express what was truly in here. And I had not felt that type of safety for a long, long time. That Friday evening, after some teaching and sharing, I ended up on the floor with 7 other men. We were in a nice big conference room. We had plenty of room to spread out. David had walked us through, the leader had walked us through a particular breathing exercise. And essentially, he had us breathing in and out of our nose. Breathing in and out of our nose, and then before that, taking our hand and just finding a place on our body where we felt like there was some type of a charge. We felt like that there was something that our intuition, our being just told us this is the spot. And David had preempted us. He said, now when you do this breathing exercise, he said, we're going to do it for a while. He says, all you need to do is do the breathing. That's it. And if you feel like you need to express something, express it. Nobody can hear us. We're in this conference room. We're the only ones here. He laid the groundwork out really nice. He had obviously done this before and had some experience with it. I laid down on the ground. I had my little corner, and I just began breathing in and out through my nose. And my hand was right here on my belly. And we were also kind of focusing on breathing into the belly a little bit more. And as I began to do that, as I began to do this breathing exercise, just laying there all alone, just keeping my mind focused on the breath, keeping my mind focused on that inhalation and exhalation that I was doing, that was greater than just the normal breathing that we go through. This massive amount of energy began to build within me. It felt like, really quickly, it felt like I wanted to crawl out of my skin. Because I didn't know what to do with all of this energy that was cycling, that was building within. But my body did. And I began to just scream and yell and growl. All sorts of sounds started coming out of me. I had no idea what was going on, but I didn't really care either because I was so in the moment of what was happening and just focused so much on this breath. I was allowing to come forth whatever needed to come forth. And the growl turned into anger and angry statements. And ironically, the anger, it wasn't even directed at the person that was causing so much suffering and pain and heartache in my life at the time. Instead, it was directed at me. And more specifically, it was directed at my inner child. And I remember screaming. I remember yelling at that inner child and saying, "This is all your fault." And I began to threaten that inner child with terrible things. And just as quickly as that began, this still small voice came through. And it said, "He is part of you. He needs you." And just like that, I broke down. From this intense anger, it's as if it just broke away. And all this heartache and pain just flowed through. So then I laid there, sobbing and crying, still trying to do the breathing. I was an absolute mess. When I laid there doing that, I actually began to hold the boy. Tell the boy that it was okay. That he didn't have anything to fear. At the end of the 20 minutes of breathing, I believe it was about 20 minutes or so, I had a peace that I hadn't felt in a long, long time. And that peace was in here. It wasn't from anything external. I didn't know it at the time, but I had found a gateway to life through the conscious breath. I found a gateway to a deeper connection with myself, to my emotions that I had cut off and buried for so long because it hadn't been safe to express them. Over the next couple of days, I would learn many things that would help me on this journey home to myself is what I call it. I didn't even actually know it was a journey I had begun. And on the very last day, the leader made a claim. David made a claim. And I was getting really nervous because we were at the end of the retreat. That meant I had to go back home. That was not, just to be honest, it was not a safe environment. I would get panic attacks at times going home, driving home from work. Things were just so bad. We were at the end of this retreat, and I was getting nervous again because I had to go back home. This had been such a respite, such a place of healing for me. I didn't want it to end, of course. David said on the last day, he said, "If you commit to doing this breathing exercise for the next 90 days, I guarantee you will have a different life." I perked up at that because I absolutely needed something to change. I needed some inspiration in my life. I needed something to enliven me. And the experience I had with the breath that first Friday night and the other experiences of the weekend, there was something here. So when he put this challenge out to the men that were there, I stood up fully within myself and was like, that's happening every single night when I get home for 90 days. I took him at his word. And when I got back home, we lived in an old Victorian house built in 1898, old basement, cold, damp, you name it. That it was a place where I could go and get privacy. Nobody else in the house liked it, which was great. Worked out very well for me. I used to go down to the basement quite a bit, and now I had a place to go again. So each night, it didn't matter how tired I was, it didn't matter how exhausted I was from the day. If I climbed into bed and then remembered, I haven't done my breathing yet. I got back up, and I went downstairs. Put a couple blankets on the floor, a pillow, and I would just start doing that same simple breathing exercise, in and out through the nose, hand wherever you feel a charge. And I would begin to do that each night. And on the nights where I knew I was just going through the emotions, sometimes we do that, right? We fall into that pattern. Well, it's a thing, it's just a practice, and if I just do the practice and do the thing, it'll do its stuff. Some things that may be true, but I wanted something to change in my life. So when I knew that I was just going through the emotions, I would call myself out on it. I would say, nope, start again. Do it again. It was rare that that happened, but it happened on occasion. Some nights I went down. Some nights I would breathe, and it was the most peaceful, contented part of the entire day. There were other times where I would go down and I would breathe, and that anger would come from nowhere. And I would keep a pillow there next to me on purpose, because I never knew what was going to happen. And there were times where I needed to yell and scream and release and expire this old energy that was in me. I needed to allow and validate and see and acknowledge that which was no longer life-giving to me, and let it go. And so I would grab that pillow a lot of times, and I would put it over my face, and I would just yell and scream as long as I needed to. And then I would go back into the breath. On other nights, I would lay there, I would do the breathing, I would find myself halfway through in like a fetal position on the floor, all curled up, sobbing. And on other nights, I would begin to hear that still small voice so much more clearly. And still on other nights, I began to connect deeper with myself. I began to connect with my spirit guides. All the prayers I had done in my life up to this point, I had never had any experiences like this. That was just my experience. But there was something about the conscious breath that allowed me to connect deeper to my own being. That allowed me then to connect deeper to everything and everyone around me. Little by little, I was expiring the old, releasing these trapped emotions, and creating a deeper connection with myself. This very practice I didn't know at the time was transforming my being. And the more I practiced, it's very interesting. It wasn't until I started doing these conscious breathing that I began to realize how shallow my breath always was on a normal daily basis. It's that breath that you have that's up here in your chest. This is the way most people actually breathe. And by simply doing a practice like this, a deep breathing exercise like this on a continual basis, your body will start to acclimate to that. It will start changing that normal, automatic inhalation and exhalation process that happens. I hadn't noticed how shallow my breathing had been, but let's face it, when you're in an unsafe environment and you're walking on eggshells, you feel like you're walking on eggshells, we tread very lightly, right? Because we don't want to set off anything in the environment. That environment ain't safe to start with. We don't want to be the one that triggers something, because then usually whatever's going on is directed at us. So we tread very lightly and we shrink. Metaphorically, we shrink. And our breathing does the same thing. Our breathing becomes small, it becomes constricted, contracted. It's no different than a person that's in a scary movie that we've all seen. Maybe they're hiding around the corner, they're hiding under the stairs. They still have to breathe, right? They still have to breathe because the breath equals life. But they don't want to be found either. So they make themselves as small as possible, as quiet as possible, and that breath becomes very shallow, very constricted. I had breathed unknowingly like this for decades. From a physiological aspect, the breath is the gateway to many things. Lower blood pressure, improved heart rate, it oxygenates the tissues and cells, and it improves or reduces anxiety and depression. All sorts of things from a physiological aspect. And yet, I wasn't really concerned about the physiological aspects. The only physiological aspect I was really concerned with was the regulation of the nervous system. After all, that's where everything's stored. It's where all this energy is stored. All these feelings of unsafe, of feeling unsafe. If you want to term them traumas, sometimes we term them traumas. Maybe they're immediate, acute traumas, maybe they're ongoing. And all of this energy is stored in some capacity in our nervous system. And when we deeply and consciously breathe, it begins to liberate. It begins to cleanse our nervous system. I had no idea that that is what was occurring, and that was what I was experiencing in my own deep breathing there at the retreat and on those days at home. On February 27th of 2017, there was a group call that I had with some of the men from the retreat. And the leader, of course, was on the call, and I told them, hey, guess what, guys? I'm sitting here making this phone call tonight. First day in my own apartment. I said, I moved out over the weekend. And I'll be filing for divorce in the next few months. And David, the leader, perked up and he said, Michael, he said, when was that you came to my retreat? And he knew, but he wanted me to put the pieces together. I said, I don't know, November 2016. I said, just a few months ago. He said, yeah, 90 days, right? And I couldn't believe it. I finished the phone call, I got off the phone with him, and I pulled out a calendar and looked at it, and it was 90 days from that retreat that I went to in Connecticut. 90 days fell on the weekend that I moved out. Wow. And I sat there and kind of started laughing, because it certainly wasn't the life I wanted. It wasn't the life I had hoped for. But it was the life I absolutely needed. It was the life that would end up basically setting me free. All of these old ways of being, they were expiring. And the new had come. In my experience, the conscious breath, it was the gateway to new life. It was the gateway to a resurrection for me. It was the gateway, as I have expressed, to emotions that I had completely abandoned and disconnected and detached myself from. It was the gateway for me to release some of my pain and heartache. It was also the gateway back to my laughter, back to finding my voice again. And one thing that I found very interesting about it was a gateway. The conscious breath was my gateway to my inner sacredness. You see, I didn't realize it at the time. I mean, I knew this particular aspect at the time, that I always considered everybody else sacred, especially my family. But I didn't really equate in that anywhere. I looked at everybody else as that, but I did not look at myself in the same way. And the conscious breath was a gateway to my inner sacredness. All I was trying to do was get out of the pain that was my life at that time. And I didn't realize that by doing this exercise, for those 90 days, I was saying to myself, you know what? I'm important. Instead of being last on the list, or maybe not even on the list, for at least those few moments each day, I was first on the list. Taking time to do something that my being needed. The conscious breath is a gateway to cleanse and liberate this temple, this body that is essential for us to experience the wonders of life. You see, before I had balance, I had the simple inhalation, simple exhalation. This happens automatically, right? Happens unconsciously. But I was living in a state of survival, which is what the unconscious breath is really all about. But with this deep, conscious breathing, I found the harmony between the inspiration and the expiration, where the old could truly be released and new life could come in. If you see that yin-yang symbol in your mind right now, you'll see you have the inhalation, the exhalation, or the inspiration, the expiration, and you'll see that squiggly line that goes through the middle, right? The middle way, the middle path, that's where the harmony comes in. The blending of these two, our conscious path that we walk. So, all these years later, doesn't seem that long ago actually to me. But I look at the calendar now and then and I'm like, wow, that was a long time ago now. And all these years later, my life is full of peace and contentment and joy and freedom, sovereignty. All these years later, I look at myself as sacred. I still see everybody else and others as sacred as well. And even now, I continue to go back to the breath. Because the conscious breath has such a power within it to set you free. And one of the things I love about the breath is we like to make excuses, right? I'm just like anybody else. Sometimes we like to make excuses. We go into resistance a little bit. We don't want to do certain things. Oh, well, you know, so-and-so's not available, or I just couldn't do that because I didn't have X, Y, and Z. But guess what? The breath, it's always with you. You don't need anybody else to breathe. You don't need any other tool. Your body's already doing it. All you have to do is slow down and take your awareness and say, you know what, I'm going to breathe. And you can do it whether you have an hour, whether you have 10 seconds, whether you're sitting, standing, laying down, doesn't matter. You can do it in the line at the grocery store if you're sitting at a stoplight. You can take and choose to have a couple of conscious, deep breaths at that moment. When you take time to breathe deeply, to do this conscious, deep breathing, your body will do what it magically and miraculously does. And it will transform you at every level of your being. So, as I close today, how will your conscious breath be the gateway for you? What magical doors will it open in your life? In what ways will the conscious breath inspire you, enliven you, and bring new life to you? And in what ways will that conscious breath help you expire the old, releasing what you no longer need anymore? On that Friday night when I was exposed to this breathing exercise and did that for this first time, I had no clue, no idea how much I was holding on to. And simply by doing the breath, I was able to let go of it. The breath helped transform my life and set me free and give me the life that I have now. And I would never have it any other way. So I ask again, what will the conscious breath do for you? The miraculous thing about it is when you start practicing and you start doing this on a regular basis, you'll begin to notice that those times when you are triggered, when something does happen in life, it gives you the ability to pause between whatever stimulus is occurring and the response that you make. There's times now where something may happen, I may feel a little bit triggered or something. I don't have to lay down on the floor and do a big, huge breathing exercise to get through it. Lots of times anymore, I just have to go mentally, slow down and breathe. Sometimes I have to take that breath. Other times I don't. Doing the practice so much, simply then when the mental state comes up of slow down and breathe, it automatically responds. The body automatically responds. I encourage each of you, if it's not a part of your life at this point, to take some time. We all have the time, no matter what the excuse is, to breathe deeply. And your body will do what it magically does. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm going to go home and share that with my son as well. If you would like, did I miss something? Okay. If you would like to share your resources with Unity of Des Moines, you'll have that opportunity now as we collect the offering. And if you're joining us online, you can go to unitydesmoines.com to donate. And keep in mind that all gifts offered, both physical and spiritual, I offer this affirmation. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I receive, all that I receive. I thankfully acknowledge God as my source.
Answers from the
dedicate this offering to do the work of spirit and truth through the people of the Unity Center of Des Moines, and we are grateful. The mic is a little touchy. That's it for today. It's time to rise and sing our closing song. If it works to hold hands, we're kind of a small group. If we could kind of come together a little closer, maybe gather around Paul in the back there. And then we'll say our final benediction.